What's going on, everybody? Guess what? We are back. Okay, we are back with episode 2, all right, of season 6. I appreciate all y'all for tapping in with us last week. I love the fact that y'all love the changes, the additions, the subtractions. It's all a part of God's plan, I guess you should say. And I thank you for continuing to repost without me even having to ask. Y'all are great. Y'all are just everything y'all need to be. Okay. So today's episode is another good one with another great interview. Okay. And before we get into that, I want to say, first of all, shout out to my editor, Eric E. Dealey, 713E. You own it. You keeping it rolling, and we love you for it. Okay. And that's pretty much it. So we got to go ahead and get started. All right. I feel like I'm missing something, but maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I'm tripping. Okay. Well, let's first of all get into today's title. Today's title is The Power of Telling Your Story. All right. The meme reads, tell your story or the world will do it for you. All right. My inspiration comes from just a story about rags to riches, which my guest is going to get into his story with that today. Like I said, y'all, he got a hot 5 story. Y'all got to hear it. And I know it's going to help a lot of people. So that's the main good thing about that. 2 quotes my also my other part of inspiration. So the first quote is, our stories are everything they are, the heart of love and meaning. And then when you write the story of your life, don't let anyone else hold the pen. Okay. I love those quotes, and I think they'll be great for today's episode. So let's go ahead and introduce my guest. I've been yipping yapping for too long. All right. So Daniel, what's going on? Tell the people your name, where you were from, and where you live.
Izzy, what's up, brother? I really appreciate you having me on. You allow me to be on your show, on your stage here, and I love the name of your podcast and what you have going on. Man,
Thank you.
I'm just gonna an icebreaker. I'm so messed up in the head, bro. I got a therapist,
Oh,
and I think we all should have therapists.
right.
We've got a perspective, right? Like we only see things a certain way, and then a lot of times the problem is if you surround yourself with a certain group of people, you don't always get that bias, that other perspective. And I think mental health is huge, especially in 2022 with everything going on. You got to be really careful about what you put into your body. Are you scrolling
Absolutely.
social media at night? Are you watching the news? I know all of that might not sound like a big deal, but there's science behind it, right? Like if you
Right.
are scrolling social media and you see some shit that makes you upset, then you go to bed, like you're in a position where you're going to bed and you're really not going to wake up the morning, feeling the best, right? So, like I said, I really appreciate what you're doing and the type of impact that you're having on people. So I'm just a regular dude, man. I live in Las Vegas. I grew up middle of the road. Parents got divorced when I was 12 years old, and that's when our situation financially kind of took a turn. My mom and I struggled. She's a single mom raising me on her own, and there were some dark times. I don't have this Gary V story where I grew up a hustler. I just remember, and I remember like it was yesterday. I was a freshman in high school, and we were in between houses, and our situation got to a point where we lived in a hotel for about a month. And I remember my dog lived with us too. And my dog was like my homie, he was my best friend. And I remember we were sleeping in the hotel room. And if you got a dog, you might laugh at this. If you don't, I'm sorry. But when your dog is like licking its balls and it's like loud and it's like, dude, can you be quiet? Like I'm trying to sleep. It's like midnight, and I got to wake up to go to school the next morning. So I dealt with
Right.
that for about a month. And I just remember, especially during that time, Izzy, I was like, man, I don't want to be broke. Like, I don't want to live paycheck to paycheck. There's got to be another way out. And I found sales at 18 years old. Dropped out of college. My family wasn't entrepreneur background. We weren't wasn't born with money. And I ended up just really putting myself in the right place, right time, meeting the right people, putting in the work, where eventually I was able to start my own business 3 years ago. And, I don't have it quite figured out by any stretch of imagination, but I'm blessed to have a really awesome team. We do low 7 figures a year. And, I'm just living proof that, if I could do it, so could you listening to this podcast.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So that was like I said, we coming out the gate season 2 with, I mean not season 2, season 6 with the fire. And you just opened up that episode with a bunch of good stuff that we definitely gonna unpack more as we go along. So I hope y'all kept up with a lot of stuff. He said a lot of good information and we only 5 minutes in. So this is my next question. So again, you gave a glimpse of kind of what you're doing, but can you break down exactly what it is that you do so that everyone knows like Daniel Blue does this?
Yeah. So there's two types of people I'm speaking to right now. Let's say you've got a 401k or an IRA. You've been conditioned to think that this money you can't touch until you retire. And if you do happen to touch the money, you're going to get crushed in penalties and taxes to the IRS.
Right.
My company shows you a legitimate IRS approved way for you to access your own retirement account dollars, penalty and tax free. And you could use that money however you want. Maybe you want to use that money to start a business. A lot of our clients, they come from corporate, they want to start a business so they can break free from their 9-to-5 job. And we show them an option where they can use their retirement account in a penalty and tax-free manner to fund their business, right? So that's one side of the fence. The other side of the fence is, maybe a retirement account isn't something that you have set up, or maybe you have like a Robinhood account, you've got some stocks, maybe you've got some crypto. That's cool and all. However, you actually can set up what's called a self-directed retirement account. So basically like an IRA or a self-directed 401k, and you can use that vehicle to make money tax-free. So imagine using a retirement account that holds crypto, that holds real estate, that holds private businesses. And that money goes from, let's just say 10,000 to 100,000. Imagine that $100,000 being 100% tax-free. Those are the possibilities that actually can come to real life if you understand the money game and the way I'm explaining it.
Okay. Good. All right, good. So now you have a podcast too, correct?
I do. It's called How Winners Win.
Okay, how winners win. I feel like a lot of people listening need to know how to win, especially in this year. I feel like this is a good year to be trying to win. I feel like the door is open for all the winners. So you gave a great example, a great description of your business, a little bit about you. So tell us about how winners win. Exactly who could you say is your target audience, and like what is the overall, obviously, to win, but win at what? Tell us.
Yeah. So the mission is to help people win in their personal life, their financial life, their business life. Like I mentioned earlier, I've got a business. I've got about 13 employees right now. I don't have it all figured out, right? Like there's issues I deal with. There's issues that you deal with, right? It's
Right.
culture, it's hiring, where to invest money, operations, marketing, right? Like business is fun one day, right? You're like, man, this is amazing. I'm so glad I started a business. Like life
Right.
is just great. Mama, I'm about to retire you. And then the next day you're like, man, I'm about to quit this. I'm about to go get a 9-to-5, right? What am I doing? So business is full of high lows. And the podcast is geared towards helping entrepreneurs win in their business life. And then obviously finances is a big part of what, we do as a company. And then, just being real with people on the podcast, right? Like, I went through a funk a couple of years ago during COVID and whatnot. And I was pretty open with my audience. I ended up finding a therapist. I've been married I've been with my wife for about 10 years now. And I was just telling the audience, I was like, man, like I'm having an issue seeing things from a woman's point of view. Like I got a lot of employees that are women. I'm seeing things through a dude's lens, and I got to get better at communicating with women. So I specifically hired a therapist that is an older lady that's married, and her name is Yesenia. And I tell my wife all the time, like, man, I got a side piece. Her name is Yesenia. I see her once a month, and she puts me in check. Like she's great. She's awesome. So, on the podcast, How Winners Win, we just get real with people and share what's working, what's not working for us, and hopefully be able to impact some other people.
Okay. Well, I like that how you said basically you were struggling in one area and you went to go find an expert in that area, because it's one thing to get a therapist, but we all know that therapy is for everybody. But we all know that every therapist is not for everybody. So for you saying, okay, you pinpoint down your problem, which is something I did with the revamping of my podcast, which I kind of brought up last week, and finding out, revamping what is the problem, how are you going to solve it. So you said, which is brilliant for everybody to try to really take notes with that. Like you said, basically, okay, I know I'm struggling from seeing a woman's point of view. Let me go get a woman therapist, and then not only a woman therapist, she's also a little older, so that's another positive. And then she married too, because I feel like it's kind of hard to get advice from somebody from a situation they're not. Like if you're not married, you may can give some good advice, but in reality, you just don't understand. Like you, so for example, your wife, you can give a great advice, but at the end of the day, you don't know what it's like to be a woman. She don't know what it's like to be a man. So certain advice is just not going to work. So I like that aspect of saying, okay, let me go find somebody that's an expert in this area to help me to see the area that I'm struggling with. So that's definitely something we're going to highlight as part of the episode. All right, y'all, gems, and we're not even 15 minutes in. All right, so if you were to hear the word story, first thing that comes to mind, what's the first thing?
Man, it's your story. It's no one else's, right? It's really easy to get caught up in comparing yourself to other people, especially with social media, just scrolling and seeing other people doing it big in your eyes, and wishing that maybe you were on vacation like they were, or balling like they were. One, you don't know the truth, right? There could be some things behind the scenes that you're not aware of. Two, you've got your own book you're writing. You've got your own story, and they might just be a little farther than you. They just might be in a different chapter than you. They might be writing another book, right? So it's really easy to get caught up in comparing yourself to other people. And, your story is your story, and you have to just own your truth. And that's what makes branding, unique, because there's only one of you. And until you can actually accept your truth and embrace your story, it's going to be really hard for you to come up with content. It's going to be hard for you to really connect with people and just have real raw conversations with people to be able to develop, deep relationships.
I see, and again, I like that too, because that's the thing. People are so big on redoing what everybody else is doing and not doing what they want to do. They see this is popular, so let me just do this and add my little twist to it. But that's the thing with, it's kind of like a caterpillar and a butterfly. You want to be the full butterfly. You don't want to be the caterpillar with wings. So you have to go in and do what you want to do, and add a flair to that's never been seen before. But when people don't know how to seek wisdom, they don't know how to, they're too afraid to be themselves. In some cases, like you said, you have to own your truth and be you. But some people either don't know how to be themselves or scared to, for whatever reason. So what would be your tip to anybody who may say, I want to push my stuff, but I'm too fearful of what people will think, or I'm scared it's not going to work?
And I'm really glad that you asked that question. It's a really solid question, Izzy, because I was going to find a way to take what I just heard the other day from one of my coaches and hopefully resonate with someone listening to this podcast. But one of my coaches, shout out to Ryan Stewman, he says the other day, he's like, yo, 40% of people, no matter what you say or how you act, are not going to like you. 40% will like you. And the other 20%, it's up to you to relate to those people, to engage with them, to get them to essentially like you. Whether they do or they don't, it don't matter, right? Because 40% of people will like you for who you are, what you stand for, right? Because most of the time we're scared to come out of our shell because we're like, man, like, what's this person going to say? Like, and a lot of it's your inner circle, right? That's why you have to first start with your inner circle. Like, audit who's around you, who are your friends, who are your associates, like and it's that old saying, right? Birds of the same feather flock together, right? Show me your 5 friends, 5 people you hang out with the most. You're going to be a combination of all of them, right? Like, we've all heard it, but it starts there. So if you're not getting positive support, if you're not getting good vibes within your close circle, man, it's really going to be hard to come out of your shell, right? So let's just assume that you have a good core group of people that support you, people that cheer you on, people that want to see you win, people that will call you out when you're doing something wrong, right? People that love you. Okay, let's say you're at that point, and then you're like, okay, well, I want to show the world my story. I want to show the world who I am. Let me post more on Instagram. Let me post more on Facebook. Let me post more on LinkedIn. Let me do some videos. But man, I don't want to get trolled. Like, what if people are going to talk smack? Just remember, no matter how much you try to be someone else, or no matter what you say or how you act, 40% of people won't even like you, right? And some of those people are just going to scroll past you and they won't say anything. But there might be someone that is projecting their insecurities. They had a bad day. Their girlfriend broke up with them. They stepped on some dog poop. They just are in a bad place. And they're just going to be a keyboard warrior and they're going to talk smack about you. Who cares? Right? Like, move on. So that really spoke to me, right? 40% of the people aren't going to like you. 40% will. And it's up to you to convert the other 20%.
All right. Solid answer. So the next word, when you hear the word power, first thing that comes to mind.
So what comes to my mind is force and power. And I learned this a few years ago in business. Force is cold DMing people. Force is cold calling people. Force is knocking on doors. Like, you're utilizing your physical force to initiate something, to get a result. And I'm not saying that doesn't work. Power is attracting it. Power is getting your ideal client, somebody you want to do business with, somebody you want to do life with, somebody that you can really connect with and chill with, that is going to level you up and you level them up. Like someone really solid. You're attracting those people. They're going to reach out to you. And you can do that by a lot of different things, posting solid content, having an awesome podcast like you have going on, Izzy. I'm sure because of this podcast, it's opened up a lot of doors. That's a power move right there, right? Going to conferences, going to events, going to masterminds, being in certain groups, like those are power moves.
Okay, good. Yeah. I love that. And I've never looked at it like that, a difference between power and force. So it was one thing to force something, which is so funny you said it, because I'm in real life, I'm actually against anything you got to force. Like, even, for example, a simple one, like going on vacations with people. If it's getting to the point where these people can't go, and then now this one asking to change the date, and then this one can't go, that one can't go. As soon to me, it's now starting to become forced. So I'm like, we just gonna reschedule it. And anytime I'm out, and it's like people are trying to, oh, let's go here. Okay, this place is closed. So now we go over here. Oh, this place is about to. Just go home. Because now it's a force. You're trying to force. Just go home. Just relax. So I'm actually really against things that are forced in real life on a regular basis. So that's good. And I like that. Okay, so let's move into one of my newer segments. As we all see, introduced it last week. And as I stated last week, and I'm saying again, it was a segment. It was a segment within a segment last season. And it's what does this have to do with mental health? All right. So, according to storedgifts.com, it says that the biggest kept secret about some of the stories you keep close, none of them are the full story because you are a work in progress. It says, over time, we turn the stories of our past into short synopses and highlight the meaning we've gleaned. We're not exactly objective, though. It says that's where distortion often seeps in. For example, the story you tell about yourself and about a failed romance in your past becomes, I'm not good at relationships. Subconsciously, you adopt this story as true and never vary from believing it. All right. So then it says, in the study of the narrative psychology, mental health experts find that the untrue or partial stories can lead to mental and physical health issues. The static story we create may clash with reality or become the vicious internal voice and source of a self-fulfilling prophecy. It says, we believe the story and therefore continue to act in a way that confirms the story. So let's unpack that. So just going back down the list. So basically, we don't tell the whole story. We just turn what we learned from it. One thing about me is I try to tell every piece of the story because I like the truth. So I don't like telling people parts of the story. And sometimes, and I feel like as humans, sometimes we only tell parts of not only, but we unintentionally only tell parts because sometimes we don't know the whole thing. But I believe in the power of telling your story and not just the part of what you learn, because it's easy to say, oh, Michael Jordan, first person come to mind. I don't know why. Oh, NBA Hall of Fame. But what if he didn't tell the story about how he got rejected from his basketball team, or tell the story about how he played with the flu, or tell the story about, you know what I'm saying? You have to tell the full thing, because at the end of the day, it's kind of like what you read in a book. If you just see the ending, it's like, I want to see, you know, everything that led up to it. And me, I like plot twists. I'm a writer. I like plot twists. I like stuff like that. So for me, I enjoy, you know, twists and turns in the story. And I seen a meme the other day where it was like, how you want your life to be. And then it was like how it really is. So let's go on to that. So how do you feel? What do you feel is the best way to develop a strong mindset when it comes to telling your story?
Just remember that everyone faces adversity, and adversity comes in a lot of different forms, right? I think right now it is popular to see the rags to riches stories, right? And maybe you're not somebody, because I'm not somebody that, you know, grew up in foster care, you know, just wild stuff. Where I mean, like you see some, I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger, like immigrant, right? Moved from Europe, was poor, moved to United States, became a governor, you know, Mr. Olympia, movie star. Like, speaking of plots, like, damn, like I don't got a
Right,
story like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like,
right,
what about me? You know, so like, you know, you start thinking about that. But just going back to what you said earlier, is like your truth, right? Like, what is your truth? And when you speak about your truth, you're going to find that other people are going to gravitate towards you, because they're going to be like, oh shoot, I can relate to that. You know, my,
right.
my truth is, you know, I got addicted to Oxycontin when I was 18 years old. And that was because as a child, there was some trauma that I went through, that I wasn't able to find peace. I held on to resentment. I held on to anger, and I masked the pain using Oxycontin. And for those who don't know, Oxycontin essentially is heroin in the form of a pill. And I was highly addicted to this pill from 18 to 20 years old. What got me clean, and this is part of my story, this is the plot. Part of the plot is I had a daughter. I truly believe that God gave me a daughter and was just like, yo, for you to get clean, this is your one shot. And if you don't take this shot and make it work, then I don't know what's going to happen to you, but it's probably not going to be good. And that was, you know, shoot, you know, I'm 30, could be 33 this year. I've been clean for over 10 years. I stopped counting because that was just so far long ago. But that's part of my story. And when I break it down to people like that, you know, there's other people that can relate, you know, whether a family member or a friend going through, you know, addiction. And there's all different types of addiction, right? It doesn't have to be drugs. So, you know, that's my story. I don't have Arnold Schwarzenegger's story. I don't have Michael Jordan's story, but it's my story. And when you can really just be real and truthful with who you are, and you know how far you've come, you know, you find to, you know, essentially kind of vibe with a certain tribe and certain people in your life that can, you know, help you, and you can help them.
Definitely, definitely. And it's good that you're sharing your story and so open about it, because do you feel that sometimes people are afraid to tell their story? Because at this point, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but you seem like you've shown that you don't really care about the opinion of man. So what is your advice to anybody? And it's not even just addiction, but anything that they may struggle with, that they're fearful that they've been set free from, whatever it is, and they're fearful of what people will say. Were you well? Let me ask you this first. Were you ever fearful, or, you know, struggle with what people would think of you? And then
Oh,
after you answer that, can you tell me what is your advice to anybody who may say, I struggle with, you know, letting people tell people this, that I got over this, or I went through this?
yeah, I definitely struggle with that, you know, especially me being in the financial space, right? You know, I help people, like my company helps people with their 401ks and IRAs. I didn't go to UCLA. I didn't go to USC. I didn't go to LSU or Florida or some like really good school and get a degree in economics. Like, I'm a college dropout. Okay, that's one. Two, all right, I was addicted to drugs from 2007 to 2009. Okay, shoot, I'm helping people with their money. So it definitely was something I was like, man, like people are going to take me seriously. Like, I can't really be out in the open with this. But I got to a point where I was just like, you know what? At the end of the day, we're all human beings,
Right.
and we're all sinners. Like we all make mistakes every single day. And who are we to judge? So ultimately, you have to find a way to separate yourself from your competitors, because there's a lot of business out there in the market. Whatever you do right now, whether it's an online business, whether have some kind of stock trading group, or you've got an Amazon store, maybe you've got a Turo car rental business. Like, I don't care what kind of business you have, you're not the only one in that market, in that space. So how do you separate yourself from your competitors? Well, you do that by getting people to know, like, and trust you, right? Like, you're not Nike, right? Nike is a company, right? We don't buy Nike because of the owner, like the owner's cool. Like, shoot, that's not why we buy Nike, right? So that's old school, right? Like, old school is company branding, right? Well, it's 2022. People want to know who they're buying from. People want to know who they're actually buying from behind the scenes, right? Like, who runs that shop, who runs that business. And if you can just be more open and honest with who you are, what you represent, it goes back to the 40-40-20 rule. 40% of people automatically aren't going to like you. So when you're real and honest, you're going to attract people that are like, man, like, this dude's real. Like, he's authentic. I feel where he's coming from. Like, I can relate to it. Let me follow him, and then building more rapport.
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of social media, especially because, of course, it has its negatives and its downfalls, but I feel like that's one of the good ones where people can get to see people and get to know people and, hear their story and be able to relate, because at the end of the day, it's somebody out there that can relate to your story, even if it's only one person. And you don't know when you posting something, even if nobody likes it, comments, repost it, somebody saw it. And it could have helped somebody, even if it was only one person. So I know the answer. And then I have another quote from that same website, but I'm just a real yes or no question. Can we tell a bad story?
Man, you put me on the spot, Izzy. Yes, if you don't deliver it right. All right, like a story. I'm reading this book on Will Smith, and if you guys haven't read his book, it's really, really good. And he talks about how he said no to Independence Day, and Steven Spielberg had to sell him on doing Independence Day. And he goes on to say, he's like, man, like, it's really simple. Like, if you can have a movie with really good graphics and a hero kind of villain and a love story, like, it's going to be a great movie, right? And that's the same thing with a story, right? Like, you can't just tell the ending right away, right? There's got to be a build up. So I think yes and no, Izzy. Yes, you can tell a bad story by your delivery, but every story is going to have some substance, some lesson behind it that can add value to others.
Okay. All right. I like the twist in the answer. Okay, so same from storegifts.com. It says, too often the stories we keep the closest, the ones we repeat over and over again in our heads, are the negative ones. That's our brain doing what it's designed to do for our survival. So it says if something is positive, it doesn't need our attention because there's no danger. If, on the other hand, it's bad, then we need to take notice and spend energy to resolve it. It says the problem is that those negative stories we often tell don't urge us into action. Instead, they churn in our heads and become the source of inaction and depression. It says story we harbor and repeat are a power of self-persuasion. And so basically, your mental health could be affected negatively if, you continue to replay the negative stories in your head. And I'm a victim of it too. And just going over, it's like all the positive stuff, you'll like spend 5 seconds over. That was a good time. But then the negative stuff, you'll rehearse over and over and over again. And I think that, you brought up earlier how you use drugs to suppress your unforgiveness issues and things of that nature. So for someone who hasn't turned to, drugs or any other, because this is my thing. Sometimes it brings off, and not like the show Euphoria, but sometimes when we rehearse these negative things in our mind and it's like make ourselves mad again, it's kind of like a euphoria. It's kind of like a high in a sense. It's like make you feel good to like be mad and just like, let me just stay mad. So what was a trick for you that helped you to get over all the pain and the anger and unforgiveness that you had bottled up for all those years?
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. I mean, it comes down to dopamine, right? Like we
Yeah.
all want that hit, that rush, right? And it could be from social media, it could be gossiping, it could be, having negative conversations with yourself, it could be a win, right? Like we all seek that dopamine. For me, like my situation really turned around when I came from a position of gratitude. And I know gratitude is a kind of a sexy word right now, but I want to dig deeper. So, like the reason why I had resentment, is because my dad left me when I was 12 years old. And he moved to Mexico. So all of a sudden, my dad, who was my best friend, my soccer coach, my basketball coach, picked me up from school. He was gone, and I didn't know why he left, and he never came back. And I was a victim in terms of my mentality. I had a victim's mindset. And I go to school when I was in middle school, like, man, like, how come, Brendan's dad is there? Like, I don't have my dad. Man, how come his dad is there? Like, man, where's my dad? And I started coming from a place of, man, like just complaining. Like, I don't have a dad to show me how to tie a tie. I don't have a dad to show me how to talk to a chick. Like, man, like poor is me. Woe is me. And then what changed for me is when I actually had my daughter and I held her in my hands and I looked at her and I was like, man, this is my blood. Like, this is my kid. And I immediately just, for whatever reason, something shifted in my head. And I was like, you know what? I'm just grateful I even had a dad. Like, I'm grateful that from 0 to 12 years old, he was an awesome dad. I'm grateful that he was even in my life because some people don't even have a dad. Some people are
Mhm.
orphans. Some people are in foster cares. Some people have pieces of crap dads. Like, I'm just so grateful that I even had a dad. And I'm so grateful that my mom was awesome. Like, she did the best that she could do. And I'm just so grateful that she was in my life. And I'm grateful that I'm a mama's boy. So I just like immediately shifted my mentality. And since then, like when I get in a funk and things are going bad, I just try to come from a place of gratitude because we all want to be stronger, right? Like we all want to have a tougher mindset. We all want to have strength. Well, it's easy to forget that in order to be tougher, in order to have more strength, in order to have a stronger mindset, we have to go through adversity. If we don't go through adversity, how are we going to develop a strong mindset? We're just going to
Right.
keep being soft. We're going to be complacent. So just remembering some of those things and, just every single day being grateful for the little things and just being grateful even for the problems, the opportunities that can be successful ones when you can overcome that challenge, overcome that problem.
Okay. Okay. I like that. All right. So this is the thing. It says that here's the thing. We didn't talked about telling our story, the power of it, the beauty of it, and all that good stuff. But what happens if someone tries to tell your story? That's when it becomes an issue. And your mental health could become negatively affected if someone tells your story when you're not ready or if they do it wrong. So this is coming from creativehealthyfamily.com in an article titled Only You Can Write Your Story, Never Let Anybody Else Hold the Pen. Never let anyone hold the pen. It says, sadly, most people trying to write our stories don't have the best intentions for us or the most skilled pen for that matter. No, they usually have nefarious reasons for wanting the world to see us in a different way. An ex who wants to rewrite the story of the breakup, a sibling who wants the family to think you're the reason behind a feud, and it got "you're" in all caps. And it says even a stranger who wants internet to think that you said something you didn't. So now I love the fact that, like you said, you went from not caring what people thought to not caring what people thought. And it's just interesting with that because, and it's great how you tell your own story because now you took ownership of your sins, your past, your darkness, so that no one can use it against you. Because it's kind of like the person who said, "Yeah, I was addicted to this. Yeah, I did that. Yeah, I used to do this, but this is not me anymore. This is me now." And that's the problem sometimes. And now the way I'm looking at it, this episode, in a sense, not all the way, it's kind of a part two to last week, which was the beauty of a rebrand and a name change. And now we're kind of here. So although your name didn't change, you changed everything about your life for the most part. And I love how you brought up your daughter. You said you don't know what shifted. It was your daughter was your paradigm shift and helped shift you into believing like this is the gratitude. This is what I should be thankful for. So long story short, for anybody who may be struggling with unforgiveness, anything like that, shift your mindset to gratitude, and instead of being upset about it, be thankful that that situation happened. And it's not going to be easy, but it's definitely a good step. And that's even something that I'm gonna practice more so on a daily basis too. So with that, have you ever felt, you brought it up earlier about the trolls, and do you think that some people are fearful of posting things because they scared somebody's going to try to make other people view them in a negative light?
Yeah, I mean, it's a real thing. But you said something really important, is if you are raw and real with people in the very beginning, then you're already shining light on certain things. Who cares if someone brings it up? Like, you owned your truth. However, I do think, especially if we're talking about social media, I do think there's a difference between posting when you're dealing with the wound versus posting and sharing your story when you're dealing with the scar. And what I really mean by that is, when you're dealing with the wound, you're still emotional. You still haven't really extracted the lesson from that experience. Maybe that lesson was a bad breakup. Maybe that lesson was, a mistake in business, a financial mistake, just whatever experience you went through that wasn't a really good one. Like, it's a wound. It's a cut. It still hurts. You're not fully at a place where you can extract that lesson and talk about it from an objective standpoint. That's why I like things to settle. I can sit back, marinate on it, learn from it, extract a lesson. And now I'm coming from a place where I'm talking about my scar, where I'm talking about something that happened in the past, and I can fully extract that lesson. So when you do that, it's a different spin, right? It's not, hey, I want attention. Look at me, look at me. It's, hey, I'm sharing this so I can help you, right? People go on social media to get entertained, right? They want some kind of education, inspiration, motivation. So I think that's really important. Number two, man, just surround yourself with so many people in your life that are cheering you on, that want you to win, that even if a troll comes through, it's like, you know what? Thanks for posting a comment on my post talking crap, because you just helped my engagement. Thank you. I appreciate you, bro. Keep coming back. Right. And that's real talk, right? The algorithm is real. Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, like, comments, they help boost the engagement. They help your post get seen more. So they're actually not that bad. But when you have so many people in your life that want you to win, and that's why your environment is so key, a one-off troll comment doesn't even matter. If anything, it helps, because now your content can be seen more because of the algorithm.
Once again, you took some negative and flipped it into some positive. And then if you really somebody like the Jay-Z's, the Drakes, the Nicki Minaj, the Beyonce, you somebody comment something on your page bad, your fans are gonna get them. Because I know that, especially Beyonce, they'll put them bees and them lemons under your pictures.
Like right now, when Kanye makes a post, they all be coming out.
Man, and I feel bad because I like Pete Davidson, and I feel like that's really messing with his mental. But I feel like, when it's all said and done, he gonna have a story to tell too.
Oh yeah, you got to get him on your show, Izzy.
Man, look, I would love that, but for real, I feel bad for him because Kanye says anything, the fans will go on Pete's page and comment and will tear him up, and I'm like, leave this man alone. This man has openly said several times he struggles with his mental health. Like, stop. So it's just interesting to see, unfortunately, two people who both have mental health issues like clash, and it's crazy. It's interesting, but it just shows the times we in.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to another newer segment, the weekly sabbatical. In this segment, this is, each podcast drop once a week. So in this segment, as I explained last week, we just kind of using this time to reflect on the topic and just kind of still incorporating different quotes and different elements from different sources. So first, let's start off with me saying this. One, don't let the devil muzzle you. I liked how he said, we telling our story from the place of healing versus the place of the scar. If you're still going through it, don't be trying to tell everybody what you're going. Like, just get healed first before you go and tell the story, because you just never know what could, you have to take yourself out of temptation, in a sense. If for example, just randomly, here we go. If you have a sex addiction, you might not need to be watching certain shows. You're not healed from that or delivered or from that area yet. So you don't want to watch that and get triggered into doing something and making them calls you don't need. You have struggled with a drug addiction. You're not over it. You don't need to be watching Euphoria, because that's all that's on it. So I think that's a good starting point. And what would you tell anybody, because you had your why? So, or your, what would be your first piece of advice, anything, to anyone who's specifically struggling with a drug addiction, or, any addiction for that matter? What's the one thing you would just give them?
Man, what do you want your future you to look like? Right? Like really sit down and think about, like, what does the future you look like? 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Like what does that person look like? Who do they represent? What do they stand for? Right? When you start thinking about things like that, like who do you want to be remembered? Like how do you want to be remembered? Like when you die, what do you want people to be talking about at your funeral? Like really get in deep conversations like that. Because for me, you know, when my dad left me when I was 12, as I got older, I'm like, man, I want to make sure when I have a kid that, I don't do what my dad did to me. Like, I want to make sure that I can make it up. I don't want to repeat the cycle.
Right.
And ultimately, because of drugs, I did repeat the cycle for a small period of time. I mean, it got so bad, I wasn't actually at my daughter's birth, right? Like that's part of my story. I healed from it because that was my daughter's 13. That was 13 years ago, but I was too busy getting high when she was at the hospital coming out of her mama's belly. I didn't get in her life until she was 2 weeks old. And, that broke my heart. That took me years to come at peace and forgive myself. I finally had to get it to a point where I was like, you know what? That's the past. I can't do anything about it. But moving forward, I can be the best dad I possibly can be. And one day she will forgive me. She doesn't know about it. She's 13 years old. But I'm at peace with that. So why I'm saying all this is because I was caught slipping. I was like, man, I told myself I don't want to repeat the cycle. I told myself that I don't want to do what my dad did to me. Here I am doing the same thing that my dad did to me. I'm doing that to my daughter. Like, is this what I really want? Like, so I had to check myself. And ultimately, because I had that bigger vision, I was able to recalibrate and get back in my lane where I needed to be. So what's your vision? Like the big one is, what's your why? That's cool. But like, think bigger. Like, where do you want to be 10, 20, 30 years? How do you want to be remembered when you die? What are people going to say at your funeral? Right? Like that's much bigger than, that singular why.
Okay. I like that. So back from storegifts.com, it says no one wants to be reduced by the limits of their story by others. It says we don't like being generalized as one thing based on an outsider's interpretation. It says we want to be seen accurately, which is far more varied than anyone can give us credit for. We are each a composite of many stories, yet we're the only ones who know all of those that we've lived. It says your stories are more beneficial when told by the one who knows them the best. Through telling your own story, you can either open up to an audience who will relate or reflect privately on the current state of your ongoing story. You can do both of those things, as we stated before, telling from the place that's basically reiterating what you said earlier, telling from the place of healing or telling from the place of a scar. I'd rather tell from the scar than in the healing moment, because you just never know. It's just not the best place to be. But I like people who you have the right mindset, but just give it a minute. Sometimes you're not called to speak at the moment. Let this be a season of just being quiet, and then when it's time for you to speak and say what you need to say, then that time will come. And the main thing is we're gonna end that part of the episode off with that. I just think that people gonna always have a story about you. My boss said one day in one of our meetings, she said, perception is reality. It is to that person. So how these people perceive you is how they perceive you. It doesn't matter if you want them to think this way or not. So you have to be so comfortable who you are that it doesn't even matter. And even with that, like you can try to, and even with being comfortable with not explaining your side of the story, which I had an episode over that last season about what was it? 4 reasons why your side of the story doesn't matter. And it matters to you, but in reality, to someone who's what's the word I want to say? Someone who wants to see you in a certain way, they're going to see you in that way. So it doesn't matter what you have to say. And so we're telling your story, one from the place of the scar and not the healing. The list goes on, but a few good examples is, with how to start a podcast from the ground up. Somebody needs to hear that. Of course, they don't want to hear that as you start and finish first. Your weight loss journey. No one's going to take you seriously about a weight loss journey, and as far as giving tips and you ain't lost no weight. let me tell you something. I lost 40 pounds, kept it off for some years, and then wanted to lose some more. As of recently, I've lost now 20 more. No one would have listened to me if I would have said, hey, let's do this to lose. How are we going to listen? It doesn't make sense. So if you want to get at me, I'm gonna let my audience know you know how to find me. How to keep long-lasting friendships. If you don't have a friend, or how is that gonna work? And you telling people why they shouldn't shop on a certain website. I mean, that's minor, but not really, because you don't want everybody to spend, their money on something that's not gonna be of good quality, and you've already done it. So that's something to keep in mind with that as we reflect on the power of telling your story. And all right, so let's move on to the last segment. All right. The last segment is game time. All right. So in this segment, I'm going to name about 4 or 5 scenarios, and you're going to tell me whether or not the person should tell that story or they shouldn't. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Okay. Your mom comes home from work and a vase is broken, and you and your brother are the only ones who could have done it. Do you tell that you did it, or do you just act like you don't know what happened?
Man, how big is the vase?
I'm gonna give a price. It was $300.
Okay. I mean, I just thought about the Goonies. I don't know if you remembered in the Goonies that vase broke, or it was a sculpture. That's a pretty expensive vase. I would just tell my mama and just have her spank me. Just get the spanking and the grounding out the way.
Okay. So say, for instance, you were out with some friends and you get pulled. You've been drinking a little bit. You get pulled over by the police. The police ask you if you've been drinking. They can't tell, but they ask anyway. Do you tell them or no?
How much have I been drinking?
They can't tell, but it's a lot. They didn't pull you over for you the way you were driving. They pulled you over because you had a tail light out. I
mean, I'm definitely not self-incriminating myself. So assuming your story is accurate and I don't smell like it and I wasn't swerving, I'm rolling with it. I'm not self-incriminating myself. I'm going to be cool, calm, and confident as I'm doing what I need to do.
Oh, and by the way, PSA, the Mental Podcast, is not saying it's okay to drink and drive.
No.
Scenario based. I'm just throwing some stuff out there. Okay. Your doctor says they have some news for you, and they ask you about your current diet. Do you withhold information, or do you tell them?
Man, I'm trying to get help. There's a reason I'm seeing the doctor. So if I'm over here lying, then I'm not giving them the best opportunity to help me. So I'm going to keep it real with them.
Okay. Now, you're married now, so this is not you now. So just say this is old school. Just say you're 21. Your girlfriend asks you, have you been cheating? And who's this other woman? You know it's another woman. She was like, and don't lie. Do you tell her what happened, or you just play dumb?
Man, I'm cheating on her because I'm probably not happy with her in this relationship. So I probably need to break it off anyways, because I'm wasting my time and her time. So I would just be real with her because it ain't working anyways.
All right. All right. Good one. All right. Good. So that was a fun one. Okay. So let's end off with the question of the challenge from my audience. Y'all, look, we about to get the sweepstakes and things going back, the giveaways with the gift cards. And we got a lot of engagement this season. So it's a lot of people. I guess I'm going to be going to the post office a lot to be mailing out these gift cards. So the question from my audience this week, and we'll, of course, answer them on Instagram and do it that way. Do you have a story you want to share about your life that you know will benefit others? You don't have to tell me the story unless you want to. Remember, ask yourself, is this from your place of healing or your place from your scar? Is it one of those? I had a friend one time say she was going to write a book. She was like, when I get past this part of my life, it was her Facebook status. She said, I'm going to write a book. And I was like, that's good, because what you're saying is you're not healed yet. But when you get there, it's going to be a great book, and it's going to probably be a bestseller. So, Mr. Blue, tell us your website, anything you want people to know about on your way out. I appreciate you for being so open today, telling your story. Somebody's going to eat this up. There was a lot of gems this episode. So anything you got to say on your way out?
Yeah. If you want to learn more about me, especially if you want to check out, my podcast, How Winners Win. We're on Apple, Spotify, all the major platforms. You can head over to danielblue.me And, I'll do a shameless plug. I did write a best-selling book. It's called Blueprint to Your Best Retirement. You can get the book on my website. You can get it via Audible or a hardcover. Maybe you want to listen to it when you're at the gym. But anyways, you can get the book however it suits you. So the book's on my website. If you have a retirement account and the idea of accessing it penalty and tax-free interests you, there's information on my website that can help you. So all my social media handles are on my website. Got a lot of free content on there that people can follow along to get some value. And again, that's Daniel Blue, blue like the color.me.
All right, I wish my last name was a color. That'll be cool. Like Izzy Green or Izzy Red.
Well, what color would it be, Izzy, if you had to choose?
Probably Izzy Red.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So, all right. So again, I appreciate you, y'all. Tune in for us next week. Check in the winner how winners win. I'm probably gonna start streaming some today. All right. PSA signing out. Always remember, keep your head up like your neck hurt. Remember who you are and make your mind up. Don't let it.